All glories to Mother Ratasha. All glories to the religion of love. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to our Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us live out these teachings, be an example of love in the world. Jai. So, we're continuing our reading from the book Falling in Love, Rising in Love. And last we heard, the women asked, are we then to believe that there's no love? And the Master says, yes, there is real love. That is what you're longing for. To long for love is to long for God. And a certain woman sat by the door, and when she spoke, her mouth turned down in distaste, and her words were bitter to hear, for she mocked the Master, saying, love and love and love, only and always you speak of love. But what of me, who am betrayed by love? I am not filled with love, but with anger. And the Master answered her outburst, calmly saying, your anger is not anger, only love unlived. And another spoke up, and what of me? I have tried so hard. I have served him. I have slaved for him. What haven't I tried to earn his love? And the Master answered, love cannot be earned. It is a gift. If it could be earned, it would be a payment. Before he left me, said another, he often promised he would love me for all time. Yes, said the Master. The Master said sadly, now you know, time is shorter than eternity. Then a woman came forward and sat in front of the Master so that she might ask for all. We women have always been taught that women must surrender to men. Is it your teaching too that a woman must surrender to a man? And the Master said, no. Women need not surrender to men, nor need men surrender to women, but that both surrender to love. Then a woman at the back spoke up. And what of marriage? She asked. For I thought in marriage I could be sure of his love. And the woman who sat by the door spat out, marriage? What is marriage but legal prostitution? Still, the Master was gentle, saying, legality has its place, a protection for the things of this world. But love is not of this world. Therefore legal bindings can make no surety of love. Let me tell you a story, she said. And hearing this, they all drew near, till they sat in a circle at her feet. Now it was the coldest winter any of the animals could remember, she began. The snow was so deep, very few of the animals could attend the meeting to decide who would be voted the strongest of all the animals. So the little long-legged rabbit was elected. All went well until spring. When the snow melted, all the animals came out again. It was on this day that Bear was loping down the path leading to his favorite berry bushes. He was very hungry, so that he was not in a good mood. He had not eaten all winter, as bears hibernate during the cold. Just then, who should come bouncing down the path towards Bear but the little long-legged rabbit? Out of my way, Bear, sang out Rabbit, blocking Bear's path. This annoyed Bear, who took his huge paw and whack, sent the little long-legged rabbit flying off the path and into the woods. Of course, Rabbit complained. A meeting was called and all the animals gathered. Bear was reprimanded and told that the little long-legged rabbit was legally the strongest of all the animals. Bear hung his head and said, sorry, how could I have known? He sighed. I wasn't at that meeting. And the women loved the story and laughed, and clapped their hands together in delight. And last was a woman of wisdom, respected by all, and when she stood to speak, everyone listened. I had always believed, she said, a man and marriage were my destiny. Now I am confused. In our youth, my husband and I knew the passion this world presents as love, and in time, its disappointing illusion. Today, with you, and hearing others speak, I again saw clearly that illusion, and saw something more, a purpose hidden in illusion. Can it be, she asked, that in tasting the false, we are helped to hunger for the real? For if the reflection seems so wonderful, how much more must be its reality? And the Master answered, you have spoken wisely and understood rightly. Okay, let's go back. So again, the setting, as we recall from last class, there's a group of women who are suffering greatly, pain in the heart. And mostly what their conception of love is the common misconception of romance or great feelings. This is what we think love is. This is not love. This is the illusion, the lie, Mother Atasha says. So this lady, she's saying in bitter words, her mouth turned down in distaste, love, 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 only and always you speak of love. But what of me who am betrayed by love? I am not filled with love, but with anger. Of course, this woman's not betrayed by love. Obviously, she was betrayed by a person. And what she thought was love was actually lust, or just bodily attachment, or seeking sense gratification. And the Master answered her outbursts calmly, saying, your anger is not anger, only love unlived. Now think about that. That's pretty neat. It's not really anger, it's just love unlived. Remember, we are eternal spirit souls. Our natural state of being, our spiritual state, is one of eternality, full knowledge, and ecstatic bliss. That's the nature of the soul. Now, we don't experience that because currently we are covered over in matter, in this material consciousness, this mind and body. And it is the cleansing practice of religion, devotional service, that we cleanse away all these things, not of love, so that all that is left is love, is the real us shining through. So anger, envy, grief, sorrow, all these things, these are just the coverings. These are the temporary, illusory things that we suffer. But remove all of that. Free ourselves of all this suffering. And only love remains. Only the real us remains. So this anger isn't just anger. It's actually just love unlived. You're just not experiencing your natural state. Anytime we're not in a state of ecstatic bliss and love, we are in material consciousness, which can be remedied. It's the purpose of life. And another spoke up. Oh, my foot totally fell asleep. Oh, it's numb. Oops. And another spoke up. And what of me? I have tried so hard. I have served him. I have slaved for him. What haven't I tried to earn his love? Again, she's thinking about the romance, the emotions, the emotional connection, that intimacy. And she thinks that if I do all these things for him, or if I do all these things for my partner, surely I deserve to get all the things that I want. Well, this is fruitiveness. This is trying to enjoy the fruits of our action, not giving selflessly. And sadly, this is the case for a lot of women, that they do serve and slave for their husbands in a lot of cases, and they are neglected, unfortunately. But the truth be, as the Master answers, love, actual love, real love, cannot be earned. It is a gift. If it could be earned, it would be a payment. And that's kind of clear to understand. If you're doing something just to get something back, that's not very loving. But when you do something just for the pleasure of another, when you do something not for trying to get some reward or benefit from that action, but just to please the other, or as a devotee of God, we engage in the devotional service of the Lord not for what we get out of it, but for the pleasure of God and what we might become. Yeah, if it could be earned, it would be a payment. No, you can't. Yeah, love. You think it'd be that easy to get love, even in material sense? You think you just give a bunch of money, give a bunch of work, serve, whatnot, that you'll get all this, niceties, all the nice connection we're after? No. We know better than that, right? Another person says, little lady, before he left me, he often promised he would love me for all time. Yeah, bummer. Guy left his wife. Yes, the Master said sadly, now you know. Time is shorter than eternity. Ooh, that's like a slow burn. Time is shorter than eternity, yeah. All these years, decades, thousands, millions, billions of years, it's just a bloop in the scope of eternity. Time is a law of the material cosmos. This is not part of the spiritual eternal world, kingdom of God. Time exists here, past and present, future. And time is shorter than eternity. I will love you for all time. Well, you mean as long as you're in this body, as long as you're in that body. and even that, they don't even have the integrity to even keep their promises, keep their vows, stay committed to each other. This life is so short, so ephemeral. It's like a bubble floating in the air. It doesn't last long. It just pop. This life in this body is like a bubble, and all the other relationships around us are also little bubbles. Our family members, our spouses, our children, our countrymen, our pets. They're all little bubbles. And just floating for some time, and they go. In the scope of eternity, this is nothing, really. And how we waste our valuable time, waste this invaluable human form of life, and chasing it after all these mundane things and mundane goals, and missing the opportunity, the true value of this life, to become again self-realized, to become again the devotee, the beloved lover, servant of God, and to end this existence of bloop bloop bubbles, but to go home to the eternal. Go home to God in love, where there is no time, endless, ever-increasing bliss. Then a woman came forward and sat in front of the Master so that she might ask for all. We women have always been taught that women must surrender to men. Is it your teaching too that a woman must surrender to a man? And this is a norm in many cultures. And times are changing, especially in the past 50 years, but this has been the case. This is a man's world, right? And women are expected to be subordinate to men. Women are accepted as inferior. In fact, in the country I was born in, America, originally when women were finally given the right to vote, they were given half votes or something like that. They weren't even considered full people. And that's just in this country. And this is the case all over the world, we see. So, and in religion too, this is also the case. Women are told to submit to the men. Women are denied positions of leadership in religious organizations, most religions, most all. So The woman's asked, so does a woman have to surrender to a man in your teachings? And the master says, no. Women need not surrender to men, nor need men surrender to women, but that both surrender to love. Surrender to God. God is love. Love is of God. And we're all meant to surrender unto the supreme, benevolent, almighty, loving Father, Creator, well-wisher, our supreme Lord God. And remember, these bodies are temporary. They're not the real us. Men today could have had a woman body in their last life, and vice versa. It all flip-flops up and down, left and right. I mean, it's so ephemeral, so temporary, seriously. These are just bodily designations, and it's not by designations one is judged in the eyes of God, it's but by one's qualifications, one's qualities. If you can do the job, you can get the job. God is an equal opportunity employer. So we're both meant to surrender to God in love and help each other. One group isn't superior than another, despite what people vote to say they are or not, which is coming with the story of the bear and the long-legged rabbit. But for that, then a woman at the back spoke up, and what of marriage? I thought in marriage I could be sure of his love. Again, the misconception that love is some romance or great feeling or great relationship in this world. Relationship between two bodies. She thinks that if I get married, well then for sure I will get the connection, the romance, all the things that I'm longing for, right? Marriage should make that a sure thing, right? In a lot of cases, some women try to get pregnant so that they can ensure the relationship, they stay together, right? Even before marriage. Oof. That's a dicey, awful business. And the woman who sat by the door spat out, marriage? What is marriage but legal prostitution? This woman's pretty bitter, but in some cases it actually is. Especially in the Middle East. There's some nefarious policies by certain groups of people. They call it sige or nakat, temporary marriage. This is in Islamic communities. Temporary marriage is where people will sign some certificate, say some words from the Quran or something, and they'll have a temporary marriage for 1 month, few days, one night even, one night marriage. That way they can sleep together, enjoy sex, and it's legal because we're married, legal in the eyes of God because we're married. This type of nonsense. And then the contract expires. Okay, we're not married anymore. Nonsense. Yeah. In this case, this woman is right. What is marriage but legal prostitution? In that situation, yes. Isn't that quite nonsense? I'll tell you right now, this is nonsense. This is nothing of God. This is ridiculous, gross materialism in the garb of religion. If you remember, I said last class that the true definition of celibacy is one or none. One or none. So for a devotee in spiritual life, when two become married, they become like one body, in a sense. Two halves of one body. And it's meant to be a lifelong union for as long as you're in the body, to help one another come home to God. And as we know, especially in the West, we say, till death do us part, right? Of course, that isn't always the case. People leave each other. They divorce. For a devotee of God, typically they never remarry. So if a spouse left a devotee who's married, or passed away, and a devotee becomes a widower or a widow, devotees of God generally never remarry. No, no, no. That's not the practice. Because we know that the primary purpose of life, the purpose of life, is the transcendental loving service of God, spiritual life, spiritualization. And we're not in the business of seeking more sense gratification, more entanglement with family life and worldly relationships. So it's one or none. So for devotees, we get married for life. And ideally, both should be on a spiritual path for marriage to become an actual spiritual practice, marriage as a spiritual path. And these teachings about marriage, which we're going to go more into next week, as we finish the Fall in Love, Rising Love book, get to the core teaching of the book, is meant for those who are already on a spiritual path, married couples, to help them out. And as Meet was asking yesterday, should this be the goal, to get married, since marriage is so valued as a religious institution? No, the goal is spiritual realization. The goal is love of God. If it helps you, take it up. Take up marriage if you really need it. And if it's an obstacle, give it up. Or don't get married, I mean to say. Give it up. No, don't get married if it's an obstacle for your life. The goal is spiritualization. A marriage can be a blessing, a boon, or it can be a curse, a trap. Depends. Depends on the people. Depends on the consciousness of the people. But it's meant for life, and it's meant to be a holy union. So now, two hearts are better than one kind of sense. Now you can really work together. You have someone in your corner to support you, support each other, inspire each other. That's real marriage. And even aside from that nonsense in the East, the nakat, the sige, I heard one so-called religious leader saying, "Yeah, that's not appropriate. There can never be a time limit posted on your marriage certificate. So you just get married, open-ended, and then just divorce whenever. Then that's okay." Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. No. Marriage isn't meant. Marriage is, of course, license for sense gratification. Yes, marriage is a license to engage in sex, and it not be a sinful activity or in a form of suffering. But that's not the reason why we get married. Well, it shouldn't be the only one. And if it is the only one, oh my goodness. If you're just getting married with someone just to squeeze some pleasure out of their body, well, that is 100% lust to the max. And shame on all those folks out there. Well, what am I saying? Forgive me. well, just the ones who are just these people who just want to have sex and just use up another person. That's what I mean to say. That's messed up. And that's why illicit sex is a form of suffering. And you think that, we'll get married, everything should be fine, right? But even in marriage, it's not okay, depending on the consciousness of the individuals, unfortunately. And so Mother Tosh says, legality has its place, a protection for the things of this world, but love is not of this world. Remember, love is of God, love is of the Spirit. Therefore, legal bindings can make no surety of love. And then the story of the animals who voted who's going to be the strongest animal. And it's winter, so not all the animals are there, so the rabbit is voted. And then the bear's like, what? Smacks the, arrogant little rabbit. And then the bear gets in trouble. You broke the law. Legally, he's stronger. You can't act like you're stronger. So the same in religion. Women technically, or usually are not in the room when big decisions are made, right? When this is made into canon law, or when these policies are set forth for the community, women are not allowed in those rooms usually, historically speaking, in religion. They have no say. It's a boys' club. And even in politics, you have all these rich people, these greedy politicians. They don't really represent the interest of the people. We're not there in the rooms when these big decisions are made. They're just making moves for their own vested interests. And same with religion. You have, you know, men calling the shots. That's why they call it history. It's his story. So, unfortunately, women are caged and cut out of religion a lot, especially in positions of leadership. But this is nonsense, as we shared. If you can do the job, you can have the job. And there are a number of great saintly devotees and spiritual masters who had female forms. Mother Natasha wasn't the only one. There are many before her. There was Mary of Magdala. There was Shrimati Janava Devi. There was uh, Anandamayi Ma, great saint. There's been so many wonderful, wonderful devotees who happen to have woman bodies. And the woman body did not bar them from experiencing love of God, becoming spiritually realized. Of course not. It's nonsense for a certain section of society to make decisions on behalf of another section of society. It's all worldly politics. That's all it is. It's all ignorance. God loves all. God wants all to come home to Him. Whether you're in man body, woman body, tree body, dog body, all life, all living entities are all the beloved lovers, servants of God. And they're all meant to come home. And the last woman of wisdom, respected by all, she said, I had always believed that a man and marriage were my destiny. Now I am confused. In our youth, my husband and I knew the passion this world presents as love, and in time its disappointing illusion. Very wise. Today, with you and hearing others speak, I again saw clearly that illusion, and saw something more, a purpose hidden in illusion. Can it be that in tasting the false, we are helped to hunger for the real? For if the reflection seems so wonderful, how much more must be its reality? And again, this is picking up from what we discussed last week, that this world and the love we experience in this world is like the tree reflected on the water. It's not the real tree, for its flowers have no fragrance, its fruit have no taste. But just as there is a real tree for its reflection to appear, so too is there a real love out there that we can experience, actually in here. So by tasting what we think to be love, by tasting what we think to be happiness, and all the joys in this world, if that is just a drop of water, imagine what the full ocean is like. If the reflection seems so wonderful, how much more must be its reality? If the little bubble's so amazing, imagine, oh, eternal, unlimited, endless, ecstatic, spiritual. And the Master answered, you have spoken wisely and understood rightly. Yes. It's all just test and a trial, this life. And all the happiness, all the joy, all the beauty in this world is but a spark of the splendor of God. It's just not even a spark. Can you imagine the full glory and beauty of God? The full experience of your eternal conscious state of being, eternal state of the soul, our real state of being, that endless inner peace and ecstatic love and bliss and joy. Oof. Nothing compares to it. It's all a cheap trick compared to the real thing. Anywho, I'll stop there, pause the class for a moment. All right. Does anyone have any questions related to today's class? Falling in love, rising in love.
Yeah, I posted a question on the chat.
Oh, yes?
Yeah,
Let me check it. Oh, you wrote it. Okay. Well, you've unmuted yourself. Would you like to
yeah,
just speak it?
yeah, sure. So I have a question like, what of the scriptures that say that a woman must surrender to their husbands, like as is stated in like the Quran and the Bible, for instance? So should we like reject these verses?
Well, context. Now, to be honest, I when it comes to all the various scriptures aside from the religion of love, my favorite tend to be uh, the Vedic scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. Only because it clarifies things a lot more. They're much bigger, and I think it will apply to this as well in a form of context. Because even in the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the duty of the wife is to serve her husband in all respects. That's what it says. Now, that duty goes both ways, actually. In fact, I poured through the scriptures, actually, trying to see what are the essential duties of husband and wife. And it seems to have boiled down into two duties for each, one material, one spiritual. Now, the material duties, now this is, of course, these norms, time and place. Remember, these are everything to do with marriage and diet and things like that. These are sub-religious principles. These are things given to time and circumstance, time and place, and they're not true for all time. These are for specific times. Like, for example, before the Quran, marriage was never, divorce was never permitted at all in religion. And then the Quran outlines all the rule and structures for how to get divorced. And it says you can remarry and divorce a woman at least 3 times. This is silly. But this is time and circumstance. The world's becoming, a little more degraded, so to speak. So time and place. So things are changing, related to marriage, time and place. But I like the Vedic ones because from what I learned, essentially the material duties for husband and wife. One, for the man, his duty is to provide and protect his family. So ensure that his family has sufficient needs like food, water, clothing, medicine, shelter, roof over their head, and they're protected from danger. He's meant to keep them safe. This is the essential material duty of the husband. And the wife's duty is to see to the household affairs and to serve the husband and make him comfortable in all respects. That's the I guess like a kind of like a housewife kind of a thing, right? Now I know a lot of women hearing this would be like, "Hey, we're not a housewife." Again, time and place. Okay, I'm not saying we're talking about what the scriptures say. Okay, so remember these are the external teachings, the outer teachings of religion that are temporary, and the spiritual duties is that, and again, this is under the impression or the assumption that the husband was trained up by a devotee of God, or in this case, a spiritual master, and was taught how to live a holy life, how to practice devotional service, etc. Or in olden days, we talked about brahmacharis from last class. Well, that brahmachari ashram from Varnashram Dharma. The brahmachari is supposed to be a celibate student who learns under the spiritual master. Yeah, they learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and all the arts and sciences too, but they mainly also focus on spiritual life and devotion to God. So when it comes time to marry, that grihastra ashram, the boy should be well trained up now in spiritual life. So now he's meant to teach his partner everything he learned, and is to act as a spiritual guide for his spouse. In India, a lot of women still call, older generations call their husband not by name but Gurupati, means husband guru. So the husband is meant to be the guide for the wife, for them both in spiritual life, with God being the goal. And and the wife is meant to serve the husband just as she would a spiritual master. And a disciple, a devotee of a spiritual master, does act like a menial servant to spiritual master and serves them in all respect out of great love for all the instruction they receive. Now, again, this is like a time and place perfect scenario, because who in this age is trained up in such a way? Seriously. And honestly, if the woman was more advanced in the marriage, then ideally she would be the spiritual guide of their family, right? You know, whoever's most qualified. So, in that sense, yes, a woman would be, surrendered in love to God, to God as through a husband. Now we're going to get to this more in the next class, but in this sense, if the husband is acting as spiritual guide for his wife, then yes. And when Mother Atasha says that men need not surrender to women or women need not surrender to men, but both surrender to God, well, yes, that's the main thing. And of course, how we come to God is through disciplic succession, by becoming servants of the servants of the servants of God. So we don't just jump straight to God. First, we learn and receive instruction from a spiritual master, from a devotee of God, and we practice those instructions and render loving service without expectation of reward or benefit. So, in that sense, if a woman did see her husband as her spiritual guide or spiritual master, her teacher, then yes, she would be surrendered, but not just like to him, but what he represents. Surrendered to the message, surrendered to God, just as a disciple is surrendered unto the spiritual master, for they are the representative of God, and they are only here to give God's message and to serve, not be served. And in this sense, that surrender and service is to the benefit of all involved. It brings all to love. So in an ideal situation, let's say you actually had a brahmachari kind of situation where the husband was trained up by a spiritual master and knew rightly how to engage in devotional service and was a qualified husband. Now, remember, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, one should not be a parent, a political leader, or a teacher unless you can give liberation to others, unless you can guide others home to God, unless you're qualified for that. So we shouldn't even be having kids, according to the Gita, but time and place, time and place, time and place. So in that sense, if one was qualified and a woman did surrender to her husband in that situation, then it would be completely to her benefits, both spiritually, and she'd be very happy in life. Now, but this isn't always the case, because the men, of course, usually aren't qualified. Who's qualified. So that's the thing. Oh, he left. Oh, bummer. Oh, well, anyways, you can see the message. You can watch the video. So that's usually the case. Now, today, with Quran, with the Bible, with the Tanakh, time and place. Oh, he's back. Cultural things. So the main purport of the scriptures, the main thing, the inner teaching, is that everyone come to love of God, to surrender to God. That's the inner core teaching. Traditions be different, customs be different, but what never changes is that we are the eternal servitor of God. And whatever helps us on that path, whatever can bring us to that path, guide us towards that path, should be given all of our love, respect, and service. Yes. So that is the core. So we need not reject some of the Abrahamical scripture verses, of course, but just understand that they are part of the outer teachings of religion that are for that time, for those places, those cultures, teachings delivered in that language. I mean, also in those days, if someone committed adultery, they are supposed to be stoned to death. Well, we don't really stone people today, do we? I mean, if we're going to take it all literally, all these outward teachings, then I'm sure a lot of people should be stoned. But no, no, no. Time and place is nonsense. So remember, these are sub-religious principles: marriage, diet, you know, your schedule throughout the day, what clothes you wear, what style of food you eat. These are all outer teachings, time and place. They're not meant for all time. What is that we come to spiritual life, devotional service. So I hope that answers somewhat your question, my friend.
Yeah, I guess sort of it does.
Okay. Well, I'm not 100% expert, and I myself am not too qualified, but I'm trying my best, trying my best to share these teachings by Mother Natasha's grace and God's mercy. Would you happen to have another question, or would anyone else have a question? No? You're good? My wife is good. Yeti, you're good, brother?
Yes, Mike, I am.
Okay.
I just can you
Oh,
continue with Sika or Nikah that you said?
yeah, those
It's,
temporary marriage
yeah, it's
nonsense.
not happening just for single guys. Even married guys, they use this
Oh, yeah, that's true.
excuse.
That's true. Yes, it's that temporary marriage certificate nonsense in certain so-called Islamic communities. Yeah, yeah, married men do this too.
It's not just for single.
So basically, it's a legal swingers club too.
Yes, that
Wow,
is.
that is gross. That is super gross. My goodness, and they call this spiritual, call this religious, religiously sanctioned. What nonsense.
Yeah. And about the stoning people to death, I heard the stories that was happening, still is happening in some old villages among some very close-minded people in the Middle East too. But it's getting less and less. But I heard the story a few years ago,
Yeah.
and also
My wife's saying yes. Some corners of the world they are still stoning people.
in one country, I know that men are allowed to even if they not allowed, but if they kill their wife for any reason. Uh, I'm talking about the Islamic country,
Mm-hmm.
one Islamic country, and even the husband kill the wife for any reason, or daughter even for any reason, they might government might change send him to jail just for few years, but there won't be any execution for him or any harsh punishment for him.
If you didn't hear, my wife said it in certain places in the world, it is the law, policy of the state, that if a man kills his own wife or even daughter, kills basically a woman in his own family, he might go to jail for a couple of years, but then he's let off the hook. Basically, he's fine. And so these again, like the long-legged rabbit story. Who's making these rules? These are basically animals. They're not human. They're animals. They're two-legged animals. They're in the grossest of ignorance. Awful. Wickedness. Close-hearted, close-minded. Awful people. Awful consciousness. And same with these places where they're still stoning people. I'm pretty sure they're pretty animalistic themselves, too. Eat, sleep, mate, defend, only care about themselves, engrossed in the bodily conception of life, not actually following God's message, but just doing whatever suits them. Turn God's message, twist it, interpret it, add and subtract as they see fit to make it a religion of convenience to serve their own worldly bodily desires, their own sense gratification. This is the grossest ignorance. This is blasphemous and a great offense to God. So I feel very sorry for the poor women who are born raise and live in these types of societies. What a shame. What nonsense. What ignorance to have to deal with. Or to be in some corner of the world where people are so backwards. Oof. It's insane.
And the worst part is, since when it happened that one husband is killing his own wife or his daughter, and when other men see that that guy went to jail just for some formality, but then he released, it let other men also continue doing that. And by the time I see that, and I reading, hearing the news that because men think that, oh, if I kill my wife or my daughter, so might go to the jail for a few years, and then I will release, and it let them to do and continue this sick circle, and then keep doing it and getting more and more and more.
Oh, yeah. When you still have these types of leaders in power.
Yeah, I'm a little angry about this, so I'm just keep talking about it.
And rightly so. But your anger is not anger, only love unlived. I'm joking. No, but this is some awful injustices, sure. And devotees of God cannot stand injustice. They cannot stand people suffer needlessly, the innocent be harmed. Devotees don't tolerate this. We can't tolerate this. It irks us real bad. We don't tolerate this at all. And you're right. The cycle of violence, the cycle of ignorance just gets repeated. These types of wickedness, these sinful activities become commonplace. And they become so common that they become the norm and everyone thinks they're okay.
Yeah.
Say, for example, illicit sex life, for example, let's say. Before, in olden days, and not even that long ago, maybe just 100, 150 years ago, worldwide, people didn't get, hook up and fool around before they got married. People had more etiquette. They had more morality, more ethics. People were more gentlemanly, more ladylike. So people usually waited, till they were married before they tried to engage in sex life. And of course, divorce, that's also very uncommon back in the day. And now you see how society has changed. Not only is illicit sex and divorce so commonplace, it's even encouraged. You're watching movies, you're watching television, you see in society, like, I know myself growing up, it was considered to be cool, or you're considered, successful if a man was able to hook up with beautiful women or as many women as he could. And I'm speaking from my own experience. This is encouraged. How many movies we see of people just having wanton sex left and right, partners here and there, and we think, yeah, this is living. Yeah. This has become so much the norm. And divorce has become so commonplace. Remember, they make a vow. They actually vow. They make a promise, till death do us part. They make a vow that to have and to hold, for all life in sickness and in health, right? And this is a vow they make in a holy place, usually in front of a church, in front of like some spiritual leader, usually in front of all their relatives, in front of many people who come. And so how easily they just renege on their promises. There's no integrity. Me personally, integrity is one of... Oh, you're saying something, Yeti?
Yeah. Another thing about the Islam is that apparently, I've been told, I could be wrong, that if a man says 3 times to his wife, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, they get divorced.
Is that so? Does that make it legal?
What is it?
Just say I divorce you 3 times?
I don't know. Well, they definitely they have to go to court and become their married.
My wife says that won't annul the actual marriage certificate. Unfortunately, you have to go to the court for that.
Well, by within themselves, the heart, there is no connection anymore. If the man keeps saying that I'm getting divorced, 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 I'm sure the woman doesn't want to live with that guy anymore, and there no compassion or love will be between these two.
As my wife is saying, well, that will definitely break the hearts, that's for sure, and spoil the relationship, even if it's not legal or not. Unfortunately.
But I know one more thing that even if they go to court, uh, judge will give them opportunity for if they don't have more evidence to prove that this marriage is over. If there is no enough evidence, court judge give them again 10, for example, 10 more days. Say that okay, go live again and give you opportunity for 10 more days, for example, and see how is your relationship going. Is it getting divorced is out of passion or out of anger, or you two you're not going to live together no longer.
So lots of different policies depending on culture,
Yeah.
how they do things. From what little I've read in the Quran about it, and I really wish to make a better study of the Quran soon enough, inshallah. From what I've read, that divorce is permitted. I don't know the formalities behind it, but I do know that that when divorce happens, it needs to be amicable, and the woman has to be well taken care of. So you can't just leave her with nothing. So the woman does have to be provided with, her basic necessities, not just like leave her on the street like that. So I don't know if that means like splitting half of your assets and possession. I don't know exactly how sure. Well, I do know that that is how it works out, and whatnot. At least that's what I've read from the Quran.
Dowry.
Yeah, and there's the dowry, of course, which is, I guess, your down payment.
And also by court set kind of money. They say that your husband's he has to pay this much every month to support your welfare, support your financial.
Call that alimony.
Yeah.
I don't know if alimony is in there. I think it's just very simply put that both parties have to be taken care of, especially the woman. Her needs have to be taken care of. At least that's what I guess the fine details would be dependent on the culture and time,
And also court.
and which is all part of the times. Courts change, judges change, laws change, countries change.
Court will see that how much that guy, for example, how is the financial situation is.
Interpretations change. Well, that's how it is, even in Western society, divorce court. I hear they're pretty nasty business, divorce courts. I'm not speaking from experience, but from what I've heard. But again, this is all in the bodily, material plane of existence. So this is all material life. If God and spiritual realization was the goal for both parties, for both the husband and wife, there'd be no question of divorce. There'd be no question of all this, worldly asset disbursement. I mean, they would help each other. And if things got rocky, they would help each other through the rocky times. Ideally, this is the ideal, obviously, but society has become very, very degraded. Humanity, the collective consciousness has become very degraded. As I was saying, sinful activities that were used to be very rare are now commonplace, even encouraged. In fact, lauded in society. Intoxication, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex life. These things are seen as the markers of truly living. Hey, we're enjoying. Yeah, this is great. If you're not doing these things, then you're not really enjoying in life. YOLO. I mean, but these are all things that are destructive. They're destroying us. And as we mentioned in the book Sin, these are all forms of suffering. They cause suffering to us, to ourselves, and to others. And they are sins because this type of destructive way of living, these actions, this behavior, takes us further away from uncovering and living that love. That's why they're advised not to be done in the scriptures. That's why we're told not to do these things. And it's, again, the commandments of God, religion, these teachings, spiritual knowledge, they're all a choice. We can choose to follow these or not. And God tells us what will happen if we do or don't. And it's up to us to make the decision. It's like the parents saying, don't stick your finger in the fan. You're going to hurt your finger. And the kid's like, but I want to. And the parent says, I'm telling you. But the kid don't listen. He sticks his finger in the fan. I told you. Now you're suffering. Same thing. Of course, in the beginning, we get some enjoyment, we get some pleasure, but it's limited and temporary. And that type of enjoyment, and these sinful types of activities, are actually far more destructive and cause far more suffering than the perceived temporary joy we got in that moment. I mean, just imagine the sex desire of a man or a woman. They're just, oh my gosh, they will make so many plans. They will make so much endeavor. They will go through so many hoops just to try and have sex with this other woman, for example. Not a woman married with. There's maybe some woman is attracted to. And all for what? For this one moment, the union, and then after that, then what? What was the bigger game plan? It was just to have sex? And then that's it. Okay, bye. See you later. This happens a lot, actually. This happens a lot in society today. And women do the same thing, of course. I'm speaking, I'm in a man body, and I know how men are. So I'm just speaking from that experience, what I've seen. And what happens? My gosh. For just 5 minutes of pleasure. Okay, let's say, maybe he had more than 5. Okay, but let's say for a little bit of pleasure, then what? Broken hearts, broken homes, ill reputation, illegitimate children, venereal diseases, hollow shallowness feeling inside. For what? For just some little temporary sex pleasure. Yeah, be a gentleman, be a lady, put a ring on it. It's just, seriously. But this is the stuff that's become so common. This has become what people are seeking. Because this is how degraded our society has become. And this is the type of leaders that we have. It says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever actions a great man or leader does, common men will follow. And look at our leaders today. Oh, aren't they class acts? I'm being sarcastic. Oh, they are very degraded. So how can you expect society to be collectively doing good for the welfare of all, truly? What's that?
Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin are men of God.
Where's my soundboard? Yeah, this is, well, we get the leaders that match the consciousness of society, it seems like, and then the leaders just further perpetuate that ignorance, unfortunately. So, it's up to us to be a shining example. Be the example, and that's what we're going to talk about in next class, actually. So the next class next week, tune in next week, we're going to conclude the Fall in Love, Rise in Love book and wrap up, okay, what is the ultimate success story, or the way you can really make the most out of marriage or the spiritual path, and what is it really all meant for, and how to actually achieve spiritualization as a married couple. So we'll get into that. All right. Thank you, brother, for showing up. I think Amadi went to bed. Okay. All glories. Oh, you're welcome. All glories to Mother Atasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees. Jai.
See you later. Bye.
See you, brother.
Bye.